Hello, my name is Stephen D. Kelley. This is the Stephen D. Kelley Show. It's Thursday. Once again, it's 6:02. It's April 13th, 2023. And yes, this is Truthcat Radio, www.truthcatradio.com. And the title, for what it's worth, is, try so hard to get it right, is the FBI versus Stephen D. Kelley and Occupy the Getty is now a violent conspiracy. So I don't know if you guys are paying any attention this week, but yes, things happened. I told you last week, if you weren't paying attention, that we were going to have a big Gestapo moment and terrible things were going to happen within a week, pretty much. Well, it did, believe it or not. But yeah, the FBI showed up at my door. When I say FBI, I'm going to tell you all about it. It's basically two little individuals that I'll describe to you in detail. Showed up at my door and sort of flashed their little ID. I'll tell you the whole story, but it was a bit of a wake-up call. It was interesting enough that it was almost 6 years to the date. It was the 6th, actually. Today's the 13th, so we're not even a week off, but roughly, almost 6 years to the day that I filed a report with the FBI about the 100,000 children underneath the Getty. You know, I told the nice lady that they should investigate it or kill me. I actually said that to them. Anyway, 6 years. Well, so I think about that when FBI show up, because they've got this long history of killing people. You know, they take somebody into custody and they're perfectly healthy. Next thing you know, they're dead with all these wounds. It's like, wait a minute, where'd that happen? What happened? Did they try to escape? What the fuck, you know? Or yeah, we could talk about all some wonderful FBI moments, but here's the thing, you know, and I suppose from a law enforcement standpoint that those are the guys that you'd want to at least hope are there to protect us, or there to represent us in federal crimes and things that might be dangerous for the American public and the country at large. So it's a little unfortunate when you can contact the FBI, call up the local office, in this case, the LA office. This is the one that has the 310 area code phone number that I put out on all my memes. It tells you to call them and ask them why they're not investigating what's going on under the Getty. Well, they never really said anything about that, but this time they did, only because they say they got a report or a call, or anonymous call. Sounds like BS to me, but we'll take it, you know, I mean, we take it either way. Either it's true or it's not true, but either way, somebody did or did not call in and tell them that I was making threats to the government of this country as well as the government of all the other countries. On top of that, I was threatening to commit treason. And that was the gist of what they wanted to talk to me about. But before I get into all the little details of what exactly was said, just so everybody understands, well, and also I want to do this for the benefit of them, you know, the FBI, any investigative or law enforcement agency that was listening to this, because technically all these recordings, and this is why I tell you guys to copy this stuff. All of this stuff is archived evidence. So everything I've said is evidence. It's radioactive evidence. It's evidence that they don't want to have entered into any sort of court, because if I say something, said something, or I did something, for one thing, a lot of that's what my life story is in my book. And the purpose of writing a book a lot of times is to download this information and record it. I hope that lawnmower in the background isn't disturbing you. I can certainly hear it. But And I have earphones on, so if I can hear it, you must be able to hear it. Anyway, if you are a witness or a victim or both, there's really no reason to not record this information for posterity, for your own protection, for your own ability to memorize it. And if anything, as a deposition of what happened to you, what the events were that took place, is best to your recollection. And this is important information. So if the FBI comes over here, well, I'll just go right into the little story about the FBI coming over here, and then I'll describe my own personal background with these guys. But I was doing a interview with Renetta for her group. She had about 4,000 people or something on her YouTube. But anyway, she was doing an interview, and she had scheduled it for some Zoom type service, and we were going to do this at 11 o'clock. And lo and behold, the service had rescheduled her, whatever it is, her interview time to 12 o'clock, 1 hour later. Right about 11 o'clock, while we were waiting for this to happen, sitting by, I get the knock on the door. I didn't hear them knocking because I had the earphones on, but I looked up and I saw on the camera that there was somebody standing at the door, and I thought it was one of a string of solicitors that have been coming by lately because they heard I was getting old and I probably have Medicare and I could qualify for some silly thing. But anyway, I opened the door, and there was these two people standing there. And of course, my intuition was I knew what they were. They're wearing black and what have you. But they flipped out there was a little Chinese girl, barely 5 foot tall, flat shoes, and a guy standing behind her that was maybe, I don't know, whatever, 5'8", 5'10" or so, blonde, white guy. And I guess he looked like he was fresh out of the academy or something, but he was kind of standing with his, 2 feet or so behind her, kind of backing her up. Anyway, so when they first started talking, they flashed a little badge, they started talking. I had no idea what it was they really showed me. I mean, I kind of had a clue that it was the FBI, but at the same time, they could have been trying to sell solar or something of this nature, some sort of the constant spam that people are at the front door trying to sell, contract or whatever. So I'm sorry, who are you guys? I've already identified myself. This little Chinese girl did most of the talking. I said, well, did you? I didn't see it. Could you do it again? I need to take a look at that a little bit closer. So she pulled out her little, whatever you want to say, what do you want to call it? Their little identification thing that they have in a little black leather thing, I assume. And I tried my best to look at it. I'm wear glasses. I can't see that far. But she held it up somewhat. I mean, not like it's like a stripper. They're not going to hold still. They're not going to let you see it. But that's kind of what it was like. But I looked at it, and you could see the FBI letters on the credential. There wasn't anything else like a seal, government like seal or something, or what you would expect, like a badge type thing. But the letters on this thing were very, very light pale blue. So on the white background of the whatever you want to call it, ID, hell, if you're colorblind, I don't think you could see it at all, to be honest with you. But yeah, I could see it. Now, I tried to see what her name was, Chen. I don't remember what her first name was, Julie. I think it was Julie Chen or something like that. I'm like, Chen. Okay. And then the guy, I want to call him a young man, but I said, well, how about you? You must have some credentials too. Can I see your ID? And he pulled that stuff out. But he wouldn't hold it up for very long. I'm like, what? What's your name? So in other words, they made it really difficult for me to get their name. And my first impression, of course, was when they're flashing their IDs, they have this assumption, this authoritative assumption, whatever, that as soon as they pull those things out and flip them out and slap them back into their pockets, whatever, that you're supposed to respect that and like, oh my God, I had the proverbial FBI credentials flashed at me. I'm supposed to be intimidated and shattered by that. But instead, it was Maybe I didn't see that. Let me see that again. What's your name? Show me again. Can you hold it still for me? Anyway, now I have a screen door, a metal screen door. It's very important that you should know this, because if there wasn't a metal screen door there, they would have probably grabbed me. Okay. Anyway, there's a lot of little stuff that went on during this little conversation, and it's kind of hard for me to recollect everything in exact order. I mean, there's lots of fun little tidbits. I'm sure I remember, like, oh, I should have told them when I said this and they said that. But bear in mind, when all this was going on, I had my microphone and everything on, and I was hooked up to Renetta. And after the little nonsense with the ID, this silly girl she goes, well, why don't you show us an ID and so that we know that we're talking to the right person? Now, bear in mind, they know who I am. You know, they're acting stupid at this point. And I'm not saying they're not stupid. That's a big part of the issue of the story here. But I said, sure, let me go get my license, my ID. And I walked over to where my wallet was, and of course I spoke into the microphone and said, hey, Renetta, tell everybody in the group that I got the FBI at my front door. You know, I didn't have my headphones on, so I didn't hear her response. But she could hear everything that was going on, the whole conversation going on back and forth between me and these silly agents, if you will. I don't know what they were. But I held up my license for them, or my ID. And, of course, the silly girl, she goes, oh, I can't see it. I can't hardly see it. Can you open the door and let me look at it? I promise I'll give it back. I'm like, yeah, no. And, of course, I'm thinking, oh, you can't see it through the screen, but I'm supposed to see your stuff through the screen. Okay, yeah. And I'm like, you know, I'm holding my license there, and I started wiggling it around for him. Like, yeah. Oh, is it hard to see? Oh, well, you see how that works? You know, you try to show something like that through a screen, you see how that works? So anyway, they didn't get my license, but they finally started asking some questions. And let me see, what was the gist of the questions was basically they wanted to know if I said that I was going to end the U.S. government and all other governments, all other foreign governments. No. The story here is not what I said, when I said it, whenever I said it, but what took place during this little interaction. So when she said that, she didn't exactly say that. She said some other silliness that was like, you know, completely, I don't know, fabricated, obviously. It was all fabricated, but I'm like, what? That doesn't sound right. I mean, if you're going to quote me, you got to get the words right. Otherwise, you said it, I didn't say it. But so I told her, I said, well, you have a recording of me saying that? She said, well, no. I'm like, oh, well, it's false. What else do you want to ask me? Oh, and then, of course, she had to ask me the same question 2 or 3 times, I think it was. You know how that's whatever interrogation, they're going to ask you the same thing over and over several times and say, nope. And basically my response after that, you know, after telling her it was all false, was, of course not. It's like just so she could write down, just, what's your response? Yes or no? Of course not. Silly. That's why I actually told her, of course not, silly. Now she was getting very angry with me, but around this time or so, they got to the question where they go, have you worked for the government of Iran? You know, the government of Iran. Did you or did you not work for the government of Iran? And I said, well, I was a political correspondent for Press TV. Now, the girl, of course, she's like, Press TV? What's Press TV? What's Press TV? And at this point, I'm beginning to think, wow, you don't know what Press TV is? What are you? What are you, a child? You're not, you know, what were you doing when how did you not know about Press TV, which of course is an Iranian state-sponsored television show, which I was a geopolitical correspondent on probably almost every day for several years up until the day Trump was inaugurated. We all know the story. But yes, I was kind of perplexed that she had no clue what Press TV was, and I wasn't really in the mood to tell her. I pretty much admitted that Press TV was Iranian. Now, the guy who he wasn't saying a lot at this point, I'm pretty sure that the little girl was his superior. I think his job was to grab me once the door was open. But he kind of scoffed at what he says, well, what qualified you to be a political commentator for Press TV? And I looked at him, I said, well, I was a contractor for the CIA and the NSA. And he's like, huh? What? He's like, oh, well, and I don't know exactly what he said, but it was something to the effect of, well, you can believe that in your head if you want, but whatever, bullshit kind of a thing. And I said, well, I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was basically he dismissed it as if I was a crazy person and I was making this up, that I had never had anything to do with, in other words, he was like, and I personally think it was an ego thing, because here he is, some young buck in the FBI, and he thinks he's all that, but at the same time, he knows that compared to the CIA and the NSA, he's a little sandbag, small potato loser wannabe. FBI is kind of a joke compared to these other agencies, and here I am, not just CIA, but CIA, NSA. So right away, his little ego was hurt. He's looking at me thinking, how in the hell could this guy be? That's BS. I can smell the weed in the background. You're full of it. Well, so I told him, I said, well, I was recruited by Don Nixon, the nephew of Richard Nixon. Oh, and his boss was Robert Vesco. I said, now write that down. Make sure you write that down. But about the same time I was saying that, the little girl cut him off. Now this was her thing. I got to say that her little job probably was to elicit some sort of anger from me, to be basically, a little bitchy little Chinese girl, and to, with runaway authority hiding behind a badge with a tall guy standing behind her, like she could say anything she wants because this guy's going to back her up. Kind of like a lot of women today. That's the ultimate entitled right there. I got an FBI badge and I got a tall white male standing behind me, and I'm going to say whatever I want, because if you even lunge at me in the slightest way, he's going to take you down and we're going to get all bad. That's the other thing. When I wouldn't open my door, she was kind of pissed off when I wouldn't open the door and hand her my license, because obviously that license ploy was a trick to get the door open. And I'm like, nah. And she says, we could come down here with a whole crew. We could have come down here with a whole crew, as if to suggest that, well, first of all, it tells me they don't have anything. And if they did have something and they thought they had reason to bust down the door, that they would come down here with adequate people to bust down the door. But you all have to understand, and this applies to pretty much every agency, and that is, if they want to talk to you, as long as you've got a locked door between you and them, they can't do anything. They can't enter the premises without a warrant. And if they suggest that you're doing something dangerous, you're hurting yourself, or you're likely to hurt them or others, you're doing something of this nature, there's really nothing they can do. So having that metal door between me and that little bitch was safe, was keeping her safe, and it was keeping me safe. So the whole time, she was trying to be aggressive. She was trying to annoy me. She was trying to ask me these questions and interrupt me and ask me again and ask me to answer the questions in a manner that was more appropriate. And I did say one thing to her. I kind of looked at her, and this is one of my first impression of her when I realized that this was a Mutt and Jeff team, but I knew right away that her job was to give me a psychoanalysis and tell them if I was crazy or aggressive or dangerous or whatever stupid shit like that. So I said, oh, I see, you're the psych major. And she's like, what? And then later on, when she's starting to lose her cool, she says, You're using psych on me. But I'm thinking this guy knew damn well that this is typically what happens. All these little girls, they go into college and they become psychology majors. And what do? They work with mentally challenged people or law enforcement. So obviously that was her job. But at the same time, like I said, being the entitled little thing that she was, she knew that she could come to someone's door, screw with them hard, and make them do something, say something, act in a way that would give them the pretense to do whatever they want. And needless to say, that wasn't happening because I wasn't going to let it happen. But like I said, the exchange went back and forth quite a bit. Now, when I said I was NSA CIA, that, of course, opened up a can of worms. Because, first of all, as soon as I said, write down Robert Vesco. Now, I'm assuming everything that was being said was being recorded, not just by me, of course, but by them. They probably were wired for sound because I think her little stupid notes are really irrelevant. And ultimately, there's probably a room full of people back somewhere else listening to everything that's being said. So popping out these little words like Robert Vesco and Don Nixon are not a good thing because obviously Don Nixon is the guy that's still alive and they can talk to directly, and he's not a phony person. Nobody's going to be able to, let's just say he's got a reputation. And it gives me a ridiculous amount of credibility. So she cut that off, but then she wanted to know the dates of when I was started in the CIA and when I was, all this. So she's in very basic, she's asking me in a really kind of stupid way because she's saying, okay, so you were employed by the CIA from what date to what date? What year from what to what year? I said, no, I didn't. I never said I was employed. I was a contractor. Do you understand the word contractor? We got contracts. I said, do you want to see a contract? She said, yes, show me a contract. And I thought about it. And I said, I realized that the closest thing I had to a contract in an actual paper form would have been in my briefcase stashed away in my room. And that would have meant I would have had to leave the FBI at my door while I was digging around my room. Not a good idea. And at the same time, I realized if I'm not going to hand her my license, I'm certainly not going to hand her an original copy of one of my NSA contracts. So I told her, I said, well, tell you what, why don't you give me your email and I'll email it to you because all these documents are scanned and that's what we do now. We scan this stuff. And she's like, oh, you're reneging. I'm like, I'm not reneging. I just told you I would give it to you. And I said, better still, why don't you just read my book? All that information is in my book. I'll send that to you too. And then I got really close to the screen door and I kind of bent down and looked at her and I said, oh, that's right. You guys don't read. You're probably all about that TikTok and stuff like that. Like, I'm thinking, by this time I'm thinking, you guys are idiots. There's something else that I mentioned that the girl was completely oblivious to. I can't remember exactly what it was, but that's right. Press TV. I mean, come on, you're in the CIA, or not CIA, but you're in the FBI, and you don't know what Press TV is. It's like, now here's the thing. Also, the whole time they're asking me all these stupid questions about when, first you got to wonder, did you really not know that I was saying that I was in the CIA and NSA? I mean, at least did you not know I was saying it? And how do you know that I wasn't doing it? When they're asking me about this and that, I told them. I said, well, isn't that in my file? Didn't you pull my file? I says, and while you're at it, why don't you pull my CIA file and my NSA file? You want to know how long I was in there? Just go pull the file. Now, more than likely, FBI doesn't have the rank to pull CIA files or NSA files. Obviously, the NSA has the ability to pull FBI files. So once again, there's that ego thing. But it degraded a little bit, and I'll just say, just to kind of wrap it up, that when I mean degrade, the little girl, she was starting to lose at this point because I was introducing information that they didn't really want introduced, and whoever was listening to the recording, they probably didn't really want any of this going into the transcripts of what was being said. And they also did not want any evidence being recorded that I am somebody legitimate that knows what I'm talking about, especially when it comes to underground bases and children being raped and murdered and eaten by the NSA. So, well, like, for instance, when she said, she asked me, did you say that you were going to commit treason? And I said, define treason. And she had no definition. She had no response. It stopped right there. That question just stopped right there. Define treason. Now, obviously, I can't define treason, but I could probably do a pretty good job of paraphrasing the gist of the oath that these guys take when they become agents. You know, that part about defending the Constitution, the part about defending the country from enemies, foreign and domestic. That's kind of the big issue here. Now, beyond that, though, this whole treason issue, treason is what Obama did. Treason is what Hillary did. Those were capital offenses. But treason is not just a concept. It's a list of rules and laws, just like the Constitution is supposed to be. And I don't really want to get into the Hebrew nature of this type of rule-based system, but the thing is that, and I've said this before, and I probably, this is something I wanted to say at the beginning of the show, but as I said on Renetta's program, when some CIA honeypot was approaching me and basically saying, why would you want to let our enemies know the location of one of our bunkers, namely the one under the Getty or the one under Los Angeles, if you will. And I said, the enemy is the one that's raping and murdering and eating the children under our feet in LA. The people in Iran or the people in Russia or China or whatever, they're not the ones in the base here in LA eating the American children or even importing children from other countries to eat. They're the ones. That's the enemy. The people eating the children are the enemy. No, is the government the enemy? Is being anti-children eating treasonous? Now, here's the thing. These bunkers, and this is why we have them. This is why we've got them by the nuts, and there's nothing they can do, because these bunkers are there for continuity of government. They're there to protect our country, to protect us from the enemy, to make us strong. And yet, these are where the crimes are being committed. This is where the Constitution is being violated. This is where enemy activity is actually taking place. Actual enemy activity that violates the Constitution from threats, foreign or domestic. And technically it's foreign because underground, that is not part of our country. If you want to call the base and the elevator American territory, and you want to call the people running around down there part of this country and part of our government, we know that's not true. None of it's true. So when you say I'm committing treason because I'm threatening a government, what government are you talking about? The world government, the underground government, the government that is raping and eating and harvesting children and practicing Satanism and worshiping at satanic altars hidden away under government bunkers that we paid for? Now, the bottom line is that this government, or this so-called government, this thing that's pretending to be the government, this thing that these agents, this FBI agency are supposedly defending when they apply their laws of treason, if that same government is the same one that's raping those children, which it is, then I have no problem with saying that that government needs to be removed. If this government, the same one that runs our post office, that collects our taxes, that runs our military, that builds our bunkers, that maintains those bunkers, if those very same people are also responsible for mass poisoning, mass murder, cannibalism, ritual, human, satanic sacrifice, there's nothing that can be said to defend that activity, no matter how much they try to make it look fashionable with guys like Sam Smith, etc. It's never going to fly. So back to the rule-based society, if they say, well, you violated the rules, the rules say that you can't challenge the government. Again, what government? What are you talking about? Define this government. Is this the same government running these bases where they're eating the children? And if you say, yes, the government's running the bases, but they're not eating children, I say, prove it. Now, they will say, of course, that's not the issue here. That's not what you're on trial for, but it has to be. But here's the thing. When the Restrict Act goes through, it's not going to matter anymore. I told you that we're going full Nazi. We know that these guys are Nazi. We know that what's going on under there is Nazi, Satanism, whatever. It's all Nazi. It's all the same thing. But when the Restrict Act goes through, these agencies, whoever they are, sheriff, local police, FBI, whatever, they will all have the ability to come and arrest me for whatever they want once that act goes through. Because they will say anything on your computer, which they will take advantage of. They will take anything on your computer now is vulnerable. Anything on your computer now is vulnerable. If there's something you don't want them to see, better not be there. They now have the authority to look, the technology to look, and they will publicly tell you that they will throw you in jail for 20 years and charge you up to $1 million if you do anything to make it so that they can't look in your computer and look at your files anytime they want. So, those of us in the mission, yeah, it's going to get rough. It's going to get very hard, and they're going to basically try to clamp down on us. I kind of thought it was very appropriate that this was all going down on Easter, except that they shut up my door on a Tuesday, which technically is not a legal holiday. Monday is actually a holiday. They can't be showing up on Holy Monday, or Easter Monday, I think they call it. So, yeah, they showed up right after that. But at the same time, it seemed very appropriate. You know, it's like, oh, the Pharisees are at my door. Roman centurions, the Pharisees have been complaining about what you've been saying, said you've been threatening to take over Rome and the rest of the world. Something about being a king. What the fuck is that all about? We need you to answer some questions. Come with us. But we're going to take you and we're going to beat you up a little bit and torture you first. Obviously, they do that. I'll just, okay, I guess we reached the point of the show. I don't really care about taking a break right now, but I'm just going to go into the point of the show. Let me just finish the story about these idiots at the front door. And when I say idiots, I mean, truly, they weren't very smart. And unfortunately, they were probably the cream of the crop of the youth out there, which is really discouraging. But what killed the conversation? What caused them to run away from me? There was a couple things. But somewhere along the line, when they were both standing there at the front door, I asked them, why don't you guys investigate under the Getty? How come you guys don't, you're not putting some effort into investigating under the Getty? Because I mentioned, it's been 6 years. The young man, to me, they're little boys, little girl, little boy. He said, what did he say? He said, we're familiar with your podcast. Okay, that was a clue. They had a little bit of briefing about me. My podcast. That's what this is, a podcast. No, it's Truthcat Radio. It's not a podcast. Anyway. But what else he said? He goes, Well, a couple things happened. I asked him, I said, hey, I'll bet you're getting a lot of calls every day now from people asking you why you're not investigating under the Getty. And he says, yeah, we are. It's like, okay, then. Now we're starting to get somewhere. You know I have a podcast. Well, when he said about the podcast, he says, well, we know you have a podcast and freedom of speech and all that, blah, 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 something of this nature. And I'm like, oh, wow, if only that was true. Because I'm thinking, really, dude, freedom of speech? Are you kidding me? That's why you are at my door. Really? And then you're going to act like you're just coming because somebody made a complaint, because somebody watched a video, but you didn't look in my file to figure out who it was that you're running to go see. You drove all the way from LA to La Puente in city traffic to come and see me. I didn't see a Crown Victoria, but who knows? Maybe they drive Toyotas now. But anyway, when they said they wanted to investigate, well, first they said that, well, it's our policy. We don't tell anybody what investigations we are doing or not. And at this point, I'm starting to get a little angry because I remembered that, that I did file that report with the human trafficking. And they should be actually doing something. It was 6 years ago, and here they are giving me this crap. I'm like, what the hell? Why can't you guys do that? And a couple other things. And this is but as soon as I said this thing about why don't you investigate, about this point, the little girl had enough, and she was starting to run away. But right before she starts to turn her back and run away, I kind of challenged them both. I said, hey, if I tell you that there's a body buried in my neighbor's yard, are you going to dig it up and look? What's the difference? Right there, they just took off, and that was it. They couldn't stay. And then the girl ran off. She just ran off. The guy kind of lingered a little bit, but then she called him. It's like, come on, let's go. And I go, hey, what? I go, so she is your boss. But at this point, they're running away from me. This is like the Jehovah's Witnesses running away. And I'm getting a little angry by this point. I'm like, I yelled at them. And I called them pedophile enablers. I said, you're pedophile enablers. I said, you work for Satan. And of course, I yell this stuff in the street. I want to make sure the neighbors see it. If you're the FBI and you're turning tail and running away from my front door like some Jehovah's Witness that heard some truth that doesn't jive with your program, I want the neighbors to see you running from my house. I want them to know that I'm calling you out. Because obviously they work for Satan. Obviously they're pedophile enablers. And how do I know? Well, it's because that's exactly what they did. But I'll tell you, like I said, we don't have to go that far back into the history of the FBI or to know exactly what's going on with that organization. And I'm going to suggest that there are conscientious people and good people in every organization. But when you get youngsters like this, and maybe this is the reason why they hire stupid youngsters like this, is because they can carry out these tasks without asking too many questions. And when the information gets a little bit detrimental to their boss, they just run and hide. But like I said, the FBI is an organization that was basically started and run and built by a guy who was a sick transvestite. Back when it wasn't cool to be like that. Nowadays, we'd be lumping him in there with, what do they call that? Tranny story hour, or not transgender, the transvestite story hour, whatever it is, disgusting crap. But that was what this agency was. They did anything good at all, I really can't tell you. Did they crack down on the Italian mafia and the mobsters? Sure. Did they do that to the Jews? Not so much. But what are they famous for? Let me see. Remember during the Obama era? Hell, let's go back to the Clinton era. Well, Waco, that of course was the ATF, another wonderful agency. But What else do we have? Randy Weaver. FBI sets up Randy Weaver trying to get him to give him a sawed-off shotgun. And then they finally get something out of him. What do? They raid his house. They end up shooting up his family and shooting his wife while she's holding a baby. That was the famous Lon Harichi, notorious FBI sniper. Boy, he had the best legal defense. But anyway, wonderful, wonderful people. You know, that was during the Clinton administration. Of course, lots of wonderful things happened under Janet Reno. We all know what they were about, but let's look at, let's see, something a little more recent. How about James Comey, who was recently the head of the FBI, was removed by Trump, of course, fired by Trump. That guy was a corrupt mafia banker who him and Loretta Lynch basically bailed out HSBC, HSBI, whatever, that big-ass corrupt bank. And this is for drug money. So the guy that defended the bank that was caught laundering drug money is the same guy they made the head of the FBI. Now, that's a big secret, but it's the absolute truth. And yet some people will say, that's false, that's not true. And, you know, it doesn't matter what party you believe in because they're all the same. What else did the FBI do here recently that was real fun? Let's see. How about the Boston bombing? You know, those boys from whatever it was, Uzbekistan or something of this nature, that they got to supposedly plant an explosive there. Supposedly, those were patsies. That complete operation was done by the FBI in cahoots with mercenaries, private mercenaries like Kraft International or perhaps even Mossad or both. Anyway, they set these things up. Sandy Hook. The puppet Alex Jones took a big dive for his Sandy Hook nonsense. Everybody forgets about the armed men running through the forest. This was an operation. Hell, when I think about the FBI, one of the first things that comes to my head, especially when I'm looking at these stupid kids, is 9/11. Hey, do you think that planes with fuel in the wings is what caused those buildings to disintegrate and make big old, nuclear pits in the bottom? I mean, come on. They have selective judgment. It's like Frank Zappa said, America is a nation of laws. And again, Frank, I'm paraphrasing. He says America is a nation of laws, poorly written and randomly enforced. Randomly enforced. Well, it's true. It's very true. Now, once again, these pedophiles, especially the ones I'm talking about, the guys under the Getty, the billionaires, remember, they're funding it all. They're skimming the money from us. Our gross national product is going to building these things. But, little things like the mayor of L.A. lives in a home owned by the Getty. The governor of California is owned by the Getty. The vice president is owned by the Getty. Various different administrations before Obama, within the Obama, whatever administration, now even the Biden administration, are full of Getty people. John Kerry, Pelosi, of course. Pelosi. Come on. Pelosi is a Getty puppet. And this is the biggest secret. And of course, these people are afraid because we're focusing the light where it shouldn't be focused. And suddenly we are a dangerous conspiracy. Now, a conspiracy, of course, means it's not true. But if I say there's 100,000 children under the Getty, to them, that's a conspiracy. Now, who is it dangerous to? Is it dangerous to the 100,000 children that are down there? Yes, it's very dangerous if we don't act and rescue them. Who else is it dangerous to? Is it dangerous to the Getty family because somebody's getting excited and is going to say, you dangerous pedophile, like they are? Is that why Aileen Getty bought Brad Pitt's house? The one that everyone knows has got a tunnel It's because she's afraid and she wants to make sure she can get down in the tunnel if somebody shows up at her front door with a pitchfork? Is that what it's come to? Yes, that's what it's come to. That's why we have the Restrict Act, and that's why we have the FBI at my front door. That's why they're trying to shut us down any way they can, because they know it's too late. They know we end this stuff. And these people that are afraid, that are causing these draconian laws, that are working so hard to poison everybody and kill us off as quick as possible, they're afraid. And their fear is directly in ratio to their guilt. Now, again, just like during this interrogation, if you want to call it that, they wanted to know if I was dangerous, if I wanted to hurt people. Now, of course, this is absolutely ridiculous, because I actually have to devote energy in the group to telling people that we're a peaceful movement and that we don't do that. And when people come around and they start talking stupid stuff like we need to rise up and do this and charge their whatever and take over, they get bumped out of the group. And I remind people over and over and over again, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. So who's freaking out? These principalities and powers. They're freaking out. We're not wrestling against flesh and blood. We're not trying to hurt humans. But those people that are hurting humans, consuming innocent children, those people, that is the enemy. Those are the people that we're fighting actively. And those are the people that are using agents like the pedophile enablers from the FBI, etc., to do it. So, once again, to not know this stuff, to resist the truth, to cling to what you've been programmed to cling to without being objective or fair. Hell, there's so many instances of things I can think of. Hell, Ted Gunderson, the former director of the LA office of the FBI. I got to cut that out. I just want to say that the funny thing about it reminded me when I got into the CIA a long time ago, selling stuff to Saddam Hussein. First of all, it was the FBI that ended it. It was supposed to be a CIA operation. It was probably NSA, but it was the FBI that came along, stuck their noses in it, and basically shut that down. So technically, the CIA, FBI have always been kind of at odds with each other. So for me to acknowledge that, it's kind of ridiculous. How could they say it's not true? Because I was directly affected. At this point, I don't care. Because, I'll tell you, those same exact radars that that the CIA was trying to provide to Saddam are going to the Ukraine right now. It's crazy. Anyway, so I'll just say this to those FBI guys and all that. First of all, all my shows, if you come here and you confiscate my computers and try to destroy all my hard drives and everything else, the information is still out there. The book is all over the place. If you don't read the book, you have no excuse. If you think I made it up, once again, you got to read the book, because that's why I wrote it. It's just I'm really so incredulous about the whole thing, because here I'm thinking these stupid whatever they were, 20-something-year-old agents. I'm pretty sure they don't read books. Pretty sure, let alone write books. So, here you are coming over here trying to insult me. It's like, really? Read my book, bitch. My God. All right, because we didn't take a break, I'm just going to remind you guys that if you could help me out, it'd be great. We haven't really gotten a lot of economic help in the last week or so, and, people say, oh, we got to save up for a legal fund. Yeah. So I can buy top ramen and stuff when I'm in jail, right? Or deodorant. Yeah, I'll need that. I'll definitely need that. But yeah, if you could help out, please use the PayPal. And the PayPal is StephenKelly714@yahoo.com. And you have to say friend or family, hit that button, or I have to send it back. And of course, if you want to email me and get information about being a Jedi or getting some healing or getting a free copy or a PDF of my book, just like the one I was going to send to the FBI guys that tells the whole story, it'd be a good idea to go do it now. I guess if I'm in jail, it doesn't matter. You'll be able to get it somewhere else. But hey, when the Restrict Act goes through, it's going to be different, people. They're going to be able to delete everything they want from the internet, and I don't know how long your side channels are going to last, but it's going to get ugly. So, and they're going to go after you too. I'm not trying to scare you, but now's the time to suit up, put your armor on, strap your balls on, whatever you need to do. But it's time, okay? It really is. Maybe we got another week. Who knows? I'm on point right now. I'm waiting for them to bust down the door, and I'm not saying that they have the authority to do that. But when that Restrict Act goes through, they'll have all the authority in the world to do whatever they want and have the funding to carry through. That's pretty damn scary. All right. So, as I didn't mention that Renetta's show was taken off the YouTube after 24 hours. And the reason why they took it off is because they called Occupy the Getty a dangerous conspiracy. So, yeah, we're not a conspiracy, but we're only dangerous to those evil entities that are murdering the children. So if the government, if its job is to protect those people that are murdering the children, or if the government is those people murdering the children, well, then the rules don't apply. And if they want to call that treason, that's treason against an entity that has no authority over anybody in this country, but pretends to. And that's basically what we have right now. So we're at war, people. Get used to it. All right. Once again, my name is Stephen D. Kelley, the one and only infamous Stephen D. Kelley, the one they won't say my name, pussies. Talking to you guys. You know, I call these FBI guys pussies all the time, and yet they show up at my door. You know damn well. It's like, really? Come on. You know what I say. You know what I call you guys. Ugh. Anyway. So it's getting real, okay? And again, my name is Stephen D. Kelley, and this is Truthcat Radio, www.truthcatradio.com. I hope the volume was good enough for you tonight. Sorry about the musical interruption earlier. But I'll see you next week, God willing, all right? And if you haven't become a member of the group yet, you better hurry up, because until they take down the Telegram, which they probably will, that will be the only way to get anything. Because unlike what that CIA or FBI guy said, we don't have freedom of speech. We did. I wouldn't be going through any of this crap. Okay? All right. So I'll see you guys next week, okay? And I'll see you in the group, which, of course, is Telegram, Occupy the Getty / Stephen D. Kelley. All right? Say hello when you join the group. Also, send me an email. Okay? That's it. All right, I'm out of here. Good night. God bless. Adios. And goodbye.